It is very fitting that our keynote speaker today is someone who knows about the importance of communication and the skills that in fact helped him build a very successful career in the media and in radio. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jim Cunningham, Artistic Director of WQED FM in Pittsburgh and member of the Thiel class of 1977. Jim?
Thank you, Dr. Van Aken. Distinguished faculty, parents, friends, staff, members of the board, the class of 2013. Anyone who listens to public radio or watches PBS knows that fundraising drives are essential. After working in public radio and television a while, I've been part of a lot of fundraisers. The New York Times compared public broadcasting fundraising methods to waterboarding. Can you believe it? Equating my fundraising to the CIA's secret torture methods. And don't think it's just public radio who's after you. There are only a few things certain in life: death, taxes, and the fact that the Thiel Alumni Phone-a-thon will find you next year. I guarantee you, we'll be calling you. And I am delighted to be with you. I want to thank Choir Director Michael Bray for his marvelous music today at Baccalaureate this afternoon. I have been privileged to hear his great work with the Thiel Choir on many occasions, and organist Catherine Gray playing Bach. Choir directors and organists do not get enough respect. Too many people hear the organ and are reminded of funerals and long, hot summer Sunday morning sermons. Oh my. The organ is an instrument of great joy and connects us to history, world culture, and to the divine. Johann Sebastian Bach signed every manuscript Soli Deo Gloria, only for the glory of God. Bach also had 20 children. As a broadcaster, you must be careful with word choice and phrasing when explaining that Bach had a very large organ. You've got to be careful. He didn't pull out the stops, let me tell you. I graduated with a dual major from Thiel. English, because I have always loved books, newspapers, magazines, reading, and business administration, because my father made me study business administration. Parents like us to have practical skills to fall back on. In fact, both of my majors have been extremely useful to me. Thank you, David Miller. Thank you very much. For example, I was very glad to have learned something of commas and the use of parenthesis while I was here at Thiel. Working in radio, it's essential that disc jockeys be able to read scripts fluently, including some foreign names, and be alert to the changes needed in the copy. I will never forget, late one night in December, one of my colleagues was on duty when the station signed off for the evening. Now, radio and TV stations broadcast 24 hours a day, but then the station signed off the air at midnight. This particular night, a disc jockey was working who was completely unaware of the correct use of parenthesis. So the words that came out of the radio were these: "This is announcer's name, wishing you a good evening, and if Christmas, Merry Christmas. If New Year's, Happy New Year." Being here thrills me more than you could know. My family is here, my wife Lori, my son Jim, he's 13, he's a terrific violinist, Jim the Fourth, and of course my mom, who was here at Thiel until 1953 as a student. My brother Matt, my mom, my dad, my aunt, they're all Thiel alumni, and I keep in touch with some friends who miraculously graduated on an occasion like this one. My mom's father, the Reverend Elmer Ortner, was a Thiel grad, and he raised a great deal of the money that built Harder Hall. Grandpa was listening to a WQED fundraiser. He was listening to me on the radio, and I was saying how sorry I was that we had to interrupt the music to ask for money. After I was off the air, he called me and said, "Listen, never apologize when you ask for money, if you believe that what you are doing is making people's lives better." Making people's lives better. That's what public radio and television is all about. That's my job. And that's your job now, too. to go out the doors of the Passivant Center and make people's lives better, not just your own, but we have to start with ourselves. We have to be the best people we can be if we want to make an impact on the world. So allow me to share just a few habits that were formed during my years here at Thiel. First, habit number 1. Every day, if possible, speak a few reasonable words. As we begin a new era for Thiel with the dedication of the Pettis Center for Communications, it's appropriate for us to think about the words we choose. For a broadcaster, it's a must, essential. Writing for radio, I could tell our listeners, Saturday morning, there will be a pancake breakfast at the Greenville Fire Department. But how about instead saying, a hot stack of fresh off the griddle pancakes, farm fresh butter melting down the side, Vermont maple syrup on top, waiting for you this morning at the Greenville Fire Department. The impact of the two approaches is very different. The words we choose. We take for granted the free availability of reasonable and even unreasonable words in this country, but in many places around the world, the government tightly controls the media's words. Journalists are killed. They're jailed because of the power of words. It happened just last weekend. Gunmen stormed a TV station in Libya. 10 TV stations were shut down in Baghdad. Just a few months ago, rebels attacked a TV station in Syria, killing 7 employees there. They were trying to speak reasonable words, and they died trying to do it. The world of communications changes constantly. Think of the words of our business that did not exist 5 years ago. The cloud, Twitter, Spotify, Pandora, crowdsourcing. My first interviews were recorded on reel-to-reel tapes, then cassettes, then digital audio tapes, mini discs, and now I record interviews on MP3 players, MP3 recorders. The collection and delivery methods of communications change constantly, but delivering a message in clear, colorful, concise, reasonable words, that does not change. Have you noticed the media takes more time warning people about bad habits than encouraging good ones? I started some habits here at Thiel that I hope count among the good habits. Going to concerts, reading the New York Times every day, enjoying coffee with friends. When you have a coffee with your friends, be sure to say something encouraging to each other. Our words matter. Our thoughts matter too. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 tells us, fix our thoughts on what is true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Now, not all best-selling novels are worthy of your time. Has anyone read the 50 Shades of Grey novels? Anyone here? You're not raising your hands. If you're tempted, let me remind you of one reviewer's thoughts posted on Amazon.com. It's a wasted couple of hours of your life you'll never get back. Go to the dentist instead. I like dentists. Habit number 2. Here's the second habit to keep in mind. Every day you should hear some great music. When I visited Thiel English professor Richard Schroeder's office, he was my advisor. He was always listening to WYSU in Youngstown, which played classical music. Find your local classical radio station and tune in. Stretch yourself. Listen to music you don't know, not just what's on your iPod. Music calms stress, reduces chronic pain, and helps you heal faster. We know this from solid research now. Music is good for your brain, and I think it's good for your heart. Habit number 3. Make it a habit to have art in your life. I hold close the friendships that I made here on campus. Dr. Bloomfield, James Bloomfield, taught me how history connects to art and the cultural world. Jan and Jim Bloomfield are passionate museum goers. I have a collection of postcards that they've sent me, great art from museums all over the world. One summer, I worked in the dean's office, and the Bloomfields invited me to stay at their beautiful home just down the road here if I would cut the grass and keep an eye on things. Now, I don't remember if they came home a day early or what, but they got back from their travels, and I had not cut the grass even once. And the kitchen was a mess. But the Bloomfields still speak to me. And apparently they didn't tell anybody either, because the following summer, Dr. Judith Newton invited me to take care of her place, and you know what? She came home a day early too. I hadn't cut the grass. I was on the porch with my girlfriend. It was a crazy scene, but she still speaks to me. I spoke to her yesterday. Dr. Schroeder suggested I grab any opportunity to see the world, and I have been extremely fortunate to travel on over 25 tours with the Pittsburgh Symphony across 5 continents in my work, reporting on their travels, representing Western Pennsylvania to the world. I was in Russia as communism was crumbling in 1989. I heard a Chinese chorus sing Beethoven's Ode to Joy in Mandarin and filed a report from Tiananmen Square in Beijing. I have blogged from Barcelona to Buenos Aires, interviewed musicians in Sydney, Vienna, Prague, and Rome, where the Pittsburgh Symphony was honored as the only American orchestra to play for the Pope at the Vatican. I heard the Muslim call to evening prayer, and minutes later, the Pittsburgh Symphony played Shostakovich in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It was at the base of the Petronas Towers, the tallest building in the world at the time. They made a James Bond film there. Thiel College taught me to value history, art, literature, music, and architecture, to become a lifelong learner and library user and supporter of the arts. You are now a part of the rich history of Thiel College. Amelia Earhart with her plane visiting campus. Of course, her father went to Thiel. I interviewed Thiel degree holder Gordon Parks, one of the most famous African-American photographers of all time, here on campus. Working in Oakland, I occasionally run into the chancellor of the University of Pittsburgh, Thiel grad Mark Nordenberg. In 1987, I remember a surreal experience. It was very late at night, watching officers patrol the wall between East and West Berlin alongside Thiel alum Ken Nine. Ken was living in Germany on the advice of his Thiel prof, who said, if you're going to study German literature, you should do it in Germany. Ken's global focus, developed as a Thiel student, prepared him to live in Germany to this day. I enjoyed reading Shakespeare with Dr. Harry Petticord. I wonder what he would think of the news item a few years ago from England. Apparently, Shakespeare may have smoked pot. He might have smoked marijuana. We know this because scientists have used gas chromatography to examine clay pipes that were found in Shakespeare's garden in Stratford. There was a wonderful headline in the Daily Mail, "Do be or not do be." A reasonable use of the words, I think. Maybe you can't visit a museum every day, but you can discover fine art as close as your television screen. I remember one Saturday night in Hodge Hall, tuning in WQED, Channel 13. It was a fuzzy black and white set. This was before the days of cable television. I discovered the movies of the Swedish filmmaker Ingmar Bergman. I ended up as an intern at WQED, thanks to the encouragement of Thiel prof Evelyn Baer. I worked for Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, Fred Rogers. One day, Fred's guest was Julia Child. We made spaghetti in the studio, spaghetti Marco Polo. Fred had an interesting quote in French. It was embroidered on his office wall, and it's from The Little Prince by Antoine Saint-Exupéry. Maybe you know this quote. In French, "L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux." In English, what is essential is invisible to the eye. What is essential is invisible to the eye. Fred Rogers understood this. To focus on the important things, the words you choose to speak, the music you listen to, the art that you rest your eyes on. These are all not only things that matter, they make us who we are. WQED-FM in Pittsburgh, where I've spent my career, began in 1973. Thanks to the then chairman of the board, Leland Hazard. Leland spoke the first words ever broadcast on 89.3 in Pittsburgh. And he chose a quote by the German writer Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Mr. Hazard read at sign-on, "To live a civilized life, one ought every day at least to hear a little song, read a good poem, see a fine picture, and if it were possible, to speak a few reasonable words." That is my wish for you. You are leaving Thiel College today ready to make your own difference in the world. I don't know if my words are going to help you pay back those educational loans any faster, but I can tell you, if you make these habits part of your life, you'll be able to better manage in a world full of bombs at the Boston Marathon, terrorists, and changing technology. Now, in Bill Robinson's honor, after 4 decades as an impresario, I want to offer just one bit of advice on what to say after the theater, or after the concert, or after the commencement speaker's remarks. After a less than stellar performance, the actress Jane Cowell would dramatically swing into the dressing room to tell her actor friends, "My, aren't you glad you're you?" You see, she wasn't really giving them a compliment now, was she? Conductor Lauren Mazel remembers someone backstage telling him after a concert, "Maestro, your performance tonight was irreparable." And there was the lady who greeted the late statesman Adlai Stevenson after an address with the remark, "Mr. Stevenson, your speech was absolutely superfluous. Could I have a copy of it?" "Of course," replied Stevenson. "It will be published posthumously." "Splendid," said the lady, "and the sooner the better." I'd like to close with 3 cheers twice. 3 cheers twice for the class of 2013. I propose 3 cheers for Thiel College, its faculty, its board, its staff, its alumni. May the spirit of Thiel live and guide you on your journey always. Hip, hip. Hooray. Hip, hip. Hooray. Hip, hip. Hooray. I propose 3 cheers for the class of 2013. Remember the Thiel motto, Lux Mundi Verbum Dei. May you carry forward the light of the world and the word of God. Hip, hip. Hooray. Louder, hip, hip. Hooray. Hip, hip. Hooray. Bless you. Thank you very much. Congratulations, 2013.